right now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday, December 4th, West Fargo City Commission meeting. Before we start, I'd ask everybody in the room but emergency services to please silence their cell phones. I now ask you to join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner George?
Here.
Commissioner Simmons?
Here.
Commissioner Curtis?
Here.
Commissioner Olson?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Thank you. Item D is to approve the order of the agenda. The agenda has been distributed. It is in the packets.
I move to approve the order of the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda for Monday, December 4th, 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item E is the approval of the minutes of November 20th, 2023. It has been distributed and it is in the packet.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 20th, 2023 as distributed. Is there any discussion? There are none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F is building permits. Commissioners, the building permits report has been distributed and is in the packet. If there's any questions, we would call on Aaron Nelson, Director of Planning and Zoning for the City of West Fargo.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits as distributed for Monday, December 4th. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the consent agenda. We had items A through C. It is in the packet and it has been distributed.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as distributed, items A through C. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to the regular agenda. Item number 1 is the public comment portion. Madam Secretary, we have one individual that has been registered? Yes. We'd call on that individual. Please come forward. Please state your name and address. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Name is David Withy, 2421 McLeod Drive East. Thank you for your service. We do appreciate your efforts. I have several thoughts to share. The TIF district proposed this evening is better than several other recent questionable districts, and I really like it. It is good to see continued movement toward a roundabout at 23rd Avenue and 6th Street. It's disappointing that despite all the consultants involved, no one thought to look for contracts that would be renewed so potential increases could be included in the budget. The TAB group was invited by Mr. Andvik to discuss the sanitation study, and we appreciate that opportunity. Some thoughts which I've already shared with Mr. Andvik. First, why did the test year financial analysis use 2022 budget numbers rather than actual? This makes every forecast number questionable because this department has a history of poor budgeting. Second, the bulky collection and front-end loading projects lose money, partially because they require additional staff. They were analyzed in Section 6 of the study only because staff stated they were priorities. And why are revenues from single-family homes negatively affected by the front-end loader program they don't even use? Sections 5 and 6 show each of these projects loses money. Why was no analysis done of the financial impact of doing both projects together? If each loses money, we'll lose even more money by implementing them both. This is why the staff must recommend option 2 for rates. They need more revenue with ongoing annual rate increases to pay for these money-losing projects. This is despite the studies showing we do not have low rates versus comparable cities. It looks like the city once again might have wasted money on a consultant. The staff is recommending what they already wanted to do. There's more, but I think I'm out of time. Thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts with you directly.
Thank you, Mr. Withy. Again, we only had one registered for public comment, Madam Secretary. All right. All right, we move out of the public comment portion of the regular agenda, and we move into item number 2. Item number 2 is a TIFs district for the Sandhills 6th and 7th editions. Casey Sanders-Berglund, Economic Development Manager, will be presenting. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, President Commissioners. Thank you. Tonight, I want to call your attention to the staff report for the Sandhills 6th and 7th edition for the TIF district that's being proposed. I'll give a summary of this proposal, and then tonight also stands as the public hearing. And so prior to that, I'd open it up for any questions for myself, or there's representatives from both developers that are available for any questions tonight. So to just offer a quick summary of this project, as I know each and every one of you have had a chance to ask questions and gather some details on things that may have not been clear right from the beginning. Just to kind of delve into over the last several months, the developers in the area were highly encouraged to meet with all of the residents and offer a buyout or offer conversation around what their interest level is on a buyout for their properties in this area, and really the city really encouraged them to do so, understanding that the city also didn't have an appetite to incentivize or be a participant in those buyouts. And I feel as though we've had many conversations about what that looks like. And though that is not part of the incentive brought forward tonight, I'm happy to say that through conversations with our developers and partners, they've brought forward that all interested parties have either accepted a contract or are interested in moving forward should this incentive that's being proposed move forward, as well as some have been just outright purchased. And then there are a couple that have chosen on their behalf to stay here regardless, understanding that they would not receive any direct specials or knowing that an industrial park would grow around them. So I just wanted to make sure that was perfectly clear, and should you have any questions on that, we can discuss more about that with any of our developers. In addition, want to jump in, the plan is a planned expansion of the industrial park out in the Sandhills 6th and 7th edition, and the property value comes predominantly from our 5 parcels on our map, and I don't think it's up on the screen here, but if you had the map in front of you, it'd be starting labeled A through E, I believe, and that's where we really derive a lot of our property value that allows us to bring the TIF district to the dollar amount that can cover the debt service for the infrastructure. So essentially, the ask tonight would be a 15-year term, and that covers a 15-year term, and that would be at a 5 or 5.5% interest rate. Currently, we don't know where that interest rate would be, but let's see, my notes basically outline that at 5.5%, we would be sitting at about $6.5 million, knowing that that interest rate can be a little bit volatile. Ideally, we would be sitting at around 5%, and that would cover a little bit more of the overall infrastructure cost. So essentially, that dollar amount, excuse me, I have this dollar amount right here. The dollar amount that we would be looking at total is $7,423,500 total for the infrastructure. So the TIF would cover about $6,550,000 should the interest rate be at 5.5%. Ideally, that interest rate would be a little bit lower at 5%, and it would cover closer to $6.7 million. So with the other opportunity, of course, if we are able to the build out goes swifter, we can reduce or go back and refinance, we can reduce that 15 years. One thing I know I mentioned to each of you is if we would have looked at a project such as this a handful of years ago with the interest rate closer to 3 or 3.5%, this would have fallen under a 10-year term. And I know that that's just an interesting piece of information, knowing that moving forward and moving these larger projects forward, that's a heavy lift. And then just making sure that we know the intent for this project is the intent of building out the infrastructure, not specifically to go into like buying down houses or any of those items. Let's see, the only other point I would make is obviously the city has invested in purchasing the land for the potential interchange for the interstate near here, which again complements the potential future use for an industrial park area. In addition, our engineering team has already been in conversation with the Hazers, which property falls into this area as well. So we don't have a definitive answer on that, so I just want to be transparent as to where that lies. We don't have a definitive answer, but they are in conversation and they have the information, and I wanted to make sure you all also had that information. There's been many conversations as well with the Sandhills Archery Group, which is to the west end, and they too would receive some benefit from the special assessment district, and that is obviously a big piece of this proposal. As you can see, the Economic Development Advisory Committee had a conversation in regards to this project, and it was a 6-1 vote, and that would be, they were very forthcoming about the potential of opportunity loss should this project not move forward, and very pro-business in that way. The Sandhills Archery being one of the big concerns of not wanting to lose them within our community. And I can say with all honesty that I would agree with that. That I don't want to see Sandhills leave, and I think they're a great complement to our community. And it just becomes a cost benefit, and looking at options and hoping that the city can step forward in potentially in a different capacity, compartmentalize the two options and look at other ways in which we can support and back Sandhills Archery, while also being able to take an active role in getting this area to its full potential. With that, before you have a chance to open it up for public comment, I'd stand for any questions and allow you to ask any questions of our development team that's here.
On your data that you have in the packet for us, Mrs. Berglund, would you please go to page 3?
Yes.
And go through the number of the total property values as well as taxes of the benefit of this project for the listening public that's watching us online. Could you go through those numbers, please?
Happy to. Currently, this this current area is, okay, excuse me. The total property value for this area is $2,394,700. So currently, that's the property value. The new proposed property value would be $64,152,500. And so there is a difference or potential increase of $61,757,800. And looking at that through a tax lens, the current taxes are $35,909.72. The new taxes for this area would be $961,998.81, so a difference of $926,809. $926,089.09 proposed.
Thank you.
I would just add that that's approximately a little over a 25% increase.
25% times.
Times, yes.
Times,
20, thank you. Yes, 25% times. increase,
Basically, it's
times.
almost $1 million a year that we would potentially collect, which is huge.
Correct. I feel safe in also saying that in all of the conversations that I've had with the development team, that all of these numbers are also fairly conservative.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Just a point of clarification, we won't actually see those tax revenues come in until the TIF is paid for. But they're going to be paying property taxes throughout the way, but that money will go towards the payment of the infrastructure, right?
Sure, so the $2,394,700 would remain, and so all the taxing entities would receive those amounts. So that doesn't change anything for anyone throughout. However, once the TIF is paid off, that increment, dollar amount, will go into paying for those specials, essentially, or the infrastructure. And then once it's paid off, should that be a term of 15 years, it would end at 15 years. Should it be sooner, that could end sooner, or we could refinance. Is that correct, John?
And it's my understanding that you've had conversations with the school district and the county. There's no commitments yet because obviously they always wait to whatever action the West Fargo City Commission will take, but they have been at least briefed in this?
That's correct, yeah. And I don't know if John wanted to share something, and then I can address his comment.
Sure.
Mr. Shockley?
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. That Casey is correct, that the current existing value continues to be distributed to the taxing entities. And the Commission President, for the knowledge of the public, is also correct in that the TIF, it uses the taxes that would normally go to the school district and the county to pay down some of the infrastructure. And so it gives cities a tool to develop, because you are taking the taxes that they would pay, that they're still paying their taxes, but they're using that to pay infrastructure costs. And you're still capturing the sales tax and the jobs and the other sorts of economic development factors and redevelopment that can occur with the TIF.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you. One of the other things we're looking at here is that you're taking it as almost a 6%, 5.90%. Hopefully in a couple of years that will go down and we can refinance it as well. We've done that many times over the years, correct? Hopefully it goes down.
Commissioners, any?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to add, John, I basically already said I was just going to mention any potential sales tax isn't even included in this number, so there's that to consider as well, so.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Anderson?
Oh, yes.
So the amount of this TIF then we're paying down the infrastructure, is that based on what we're anticipating assessing these properties? What happens if the benefit is different than what we're anticipating here? Say Special Assessment Committee or the City Commission decides that some of these properties that aren't in this development have lower benefit. What happens then?
Yeah, I would actually defer that question to our either city administrator or city engineer or city attorney.
Gentlemen,
Mr. Commission
Mr. Shockley, City Attorney.
Mr. Commission President, thank you for the opportunity to answer that question. And I will tell you, this is the same practice that the city of West Fargo uses on all of its TIFs. And so we assess for an improvement district, and I'm just going to use an example. We have a lot that's assessed $1,000. The tax increment financing is used to pay down the $1,000, but if it's ever short, no matter how much you assess it, say you get $900 in increment, the $100 is still assessed against the property. So in the event that the assessments on a particular lot are higher than what the model is projecting, it just means that the property owner, the developer, whoever owns it, will end up paying that delta between the TIF generated from the lot and the special assessment. Our goal with TIFs in West Fargo is always to make sure the city is protected.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Additional questions? Ms. Berglund?
Sure. So just to answer your question earlier, I did have a conversation with Mr. Levi Buckmeyer at the school so that he was aware of this project, and I have had a handful of conversations at Cass County to inform them and open the opportunity to ask additional questions prior to moving it forward at the city. But we do follow that precedent where the city does address any incentives first prior to going forward. And then just to Commissioner George's point, she speaking about these businesses as they're coming in, one additional factor that just looking at the interest rate right now, a lot of businesses are struggling to expand and they're constantly looking for different financing opportunities. So should this area have a TIF on it that acts as though it is the community portion for, say, some of the already state funding or flex-pace funding through the Bank of North Dakota or other opportunities, and the city has to take no other action on that. And so this is an attractor for those businesses that might be, say, looking at a couple of different areas, and that could be one thing in which is the tipping point that they choose this city or this area over another. And so I think that right now, more than any other time, with where the interest rate is at, that's more important and a factor.
Very good, thank you. Any additional questions?
Just a
Please,
comment.
Commissioner.
In the write-up on page 1 of your thing, it says that we only have about 1% of our land available for industrial space for business expansion and growth. By providing this TIF, we will make that grow, and right, that's the thing behind this.
The 1% will absolutely grow. I think by the time this was even written, it's less than 1%. It will absolutely grow, but I have a pretty strong feeling that this area will be pretty attractive, and we will be increasing that number, but not for hopefully too long.
Anyone else? Thank you. With that, we'll close the regular agenda and we will go into the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? Again, we are on the TIF District, Sandhills, 6th and 7th editions for a discussion on a TIF for this property. Is there anyone that would like to speak for or against this project? Again, the TIF District, Sandhills, 6th and 7th edition. Mr. Wood?
I'll just reiterate my earlier
Please
comment.
state your name.
Sorry, David Withy, 2421 McLeod Drive East. I just want to reiterate my earlier comment. I think this is a natural project. You look at the location where it is, you look at the Fargo metro area as a center of distribution, and I think this is what TIF districts were actually created for, from a governmental standpoint. So I think it's a no-brainer, and I absolutely support it.
Thank you, sir.
But you still need $2.50 to get a soda, so
Thank you for your
thanks for your
comments.
consideration.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this item? Again, it's item number 2 on the regular agenda. We are now in a public hearing, which is the TIF District, Sandhills, 6th and 7th edition. Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Commissioners, any additional comments or questions of our Economic Development Director, or are you ready to take an action?
If not, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Simmons moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the TIF District of Sandhills 6th and 7th edition as presented this evening by Casey Sanders-Berglund, our Economic Development Manager. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries on a 4-to-1 vote. Item 3 is a proposed sanitation rates and operation changes. Will be presented this evening by Mr. Matt Andvik, Director of Public Works. And for the public's information, this is an informational item only. The commission will not be taking action on it. Good evening, Mr. Andvik, and welcome.
Good evening, Commissioner President, Commissioners. Give me 1 second and we'll get this up for you. That one. Tonight we bring for you just the information on our recommendations or the options for sanitation rate and operational changes. This process has been kind of going over for about a full year. When we started with the sanitation study, and that went for most of the year, then we brought that here a few months back, kind of for a public meeting to just present that to the public, the commission. After that, we did reach out to some members of the community to get some input on that. We also did a survey online. We also had a public meeting to get some input. And then that's part of this being just informational tonight too, is just to get these rates out in front of the public and get that feedback on it before we do ask you for that vote. Part of this is just because we know sanitation in West Fargo has been something that has usually kind of set West Fargo apart from everybody else because we do pick up everything. The comprehensive service that we do have provided in the past is something that many residents do really enjoy and enjoy having. Just going forward with this study and everything is just to try and make sure that we can kind of still provide that service, but do it more in an efficient and cost-effective manner. So right now, I'll just kind of go over kind of the fact sheets that we came up and kind of explain on why are we increasing these rates. Just the cost of the disposal since 2019. That was the last time we raised rates. That has gone up over time. Cost of equipment in the last few years has been going up by 10 to 15% per year. Cost of materials and contracts also been going up over that time. And then just kind of that breakdown is how does that look? It was $43 a ton to get rid of our municipal solid waste at the landfill in Fargo in 2019. That is up to $51 a ton now in 2023. As far as we know, there is not going to be an increase on this in 2024. I know Fargo is talking about an increase in 2025. Just the cost of equipment. Similar trucks 3 years ago to today are $60,000 more than they were 3 years ago. Steel prices, fuel, other materials like that have been increasing every year. Our recycling contract has gone up at 3% every year since 2019. And all of this time we haven't had a rate increase to try and increase our revenues. Another thing to get back, our rates that we are proposing are a little bit different than the sanitation study. And to that, I guess Mr. Withy had, when he talked about it earlier, he did mention we did do a test year. When the sanitation study was going through it, we hadn't finalized our 2024 budget yet. And they kind of created a test year what they thought our 2024 budget would look like. The differences with that is based on what our actual 2024 budget is, we adjusted those numbers. And a lot of that change between the test year and our actual budget is when we went with a 10-year equipment replacement plan. And that's where a lot of that change came from because of what we'd need for the dollar figure to replace our equipment every year as part of that plan. And we also did make a change to our multifamily housing garbage rates. Before, it was a standard rate for each unit, and then they rented a dumpster, and then we're getting charged a tipping fee from it. Right now, we're proposing just going with a flat rate fee that gets it closer and makes it a lot easier for us to, I guess, calculate what their dollar amount would be, and then it actually gets us to be able to right-size those dumpsters, and it wouldn't actually cost more to do that. We can actually pick up the dumpster more often, and we still would make that money back by having that flat rate. One more thing is, when are we going to implement these changes? If we do any changes to the collection, we are looking at like about a 6-month window just for education. We just want to make sure that we get that out, any changes, and communicate all that to the residents and make sure everybody's kind of on the same page before we want to go in and make any changes. Any abrupt changes usually don't go over very well with the public, so we want to make sure that we have that plenty of time to get out there and let everybody know what's going on. If this is approved and go forward, we will have to make one small change to our bulky item ordinance. And I think we do have that written up, and once this is approved, then we'll bring that forward for the readings to do that. It's just one small, slight change in there, basically saying we're only going to be picking up city provided dumpsters, or cans, actually. We'd actually asked for a budget amendment. If we get this just for additional funds, we're looking for about $1 per household just for that, the mailers and different educational materials that we want to get out to let everybody know about the changes that would be coming. Our bulky item pickup, we're basically just going to replace the follow truck as it is now, and we'll schedule it through an online portal or over the phone. We'll probably do 40 to 50 collections per day. That'll just allow us to be able to just streamline where we're going, so we're not just driving around following the garbage truck all the time like we're doing now. We actually can build a route with our software, and that limits the number of times that we're running trucks on the road, and it just makes it more efficient how we're doing that. And the bulky items, as you can see, they're just couches, end tables, computer desks, snow blowers, appliances. Most of those bigger items that that people can bring to the transfer station, or sometimes they just don't have the means to, that will be able to pick that up. We also would like to do that front-end loader program for commercial collection. Part of that is front-end loaders are a little bit more expensive than our rear loaders. They are also easier on manpower and more efficient to be able to pick everything up. We can get larger dumpsters in a smaller enclosure space, which helps those commercial businesses as well. And we're kind of trying to roll that out in between 2025, and then we should be fully implemented on that between 2025 and 2031, sorry. And then get to the one that, I guess this is our first rate option. And what we're trying to do with this is we want to get to a 5-year rate increase, or just a rate schedule for 5 years. Part of that is just so we know where we're at. That's one thing we've heard from the public too, is every time you go and like every other year try and do that, all we do and need a 5% or 10% increase here and there. It seems like we're always kind of, it can be saved by not spending as much, whereas this rate increase is just to try and get us to where we need to be, just for the cost of increasing in materials, labor, and contracts that we have for getting rid of the waste as well. So this way, everybody can budget out 5 years. We can budget 5 years. We know where we're at. The one change you'll see with this option one, it goes up by $3.50 for a 64-gallon cart in 2024. So it would be $21. We also are going to offer a 64-gallon or a 96-gallon cart, sorry, and that would be $2 more. Within our surveys, just a lot of the people were saying the majority of their extra garbage that they're putting out was only a few bags. That 96-gallon cart will probably take care of. So that just we'll give them one more option to that. We'll also give the option of giving, you can either get an extra 64-gallon can or a 96-gallon can as well. All that flat rate fee is also about 75% of the 64-gallon rate. We do that because the multifamily housing, they're getting all the benefit of having that garbage pickup except for the recycling. We don't offer the recycling for the multifamilies, so that's why they're at that 75% rate. You'll see that the one difference is their commercial rate will increase at 3%, but in 2025 and 2027, they're at 3.5% increases for those years. And then a roll-off rate is a 3% increase. Our roll-off rate is one of the higher ones around town, so that's why we want to try and keep that straight across the board. And same with the commercial rate. We did want to increase that a little bit more with some feedback that we got, that we did increase that to those years. The main thing that we are looking at there, I guess, is we're looking at 2028 for that right around the tripping over my words today. Reserves of about 2.1 million. That's what we're looking for, just for any kind of future expansion of maybe the transfer station, the inert landfill. There might be some different equipment that we might need at the transfer station that could, like a compactor, different things that we're looking at. It'd be nice to have those reserves just in case we have something, a larger item to purchase, possibly adding on to a building as well. So that's kind of our option one, which is kind of more or less the middle option of the two. Between option one and option two, you'll see the rates are different for 24 and 25. And it's a little bit higher as well. It's still, commercial rate increase is still the same as option one. And then at the end, you get down to the reserves. This gets our reserves a little bit higher at 2.3 over that 5-year period. And then we'll can move to option three that we have is that's going to get you the lower one. We actually start that as 17% in 2024. That 64-gallon rate there is at 2048, so that's only about just under $3 a month per increase. And that goes down to 2028, you're at 28.52. So that's a little bit lower. And with that, those lower rates, it does get that reserves just under $2 million in 2028. Those are the three options for the rates that we're kind of bringing forward. Our bulky items, we have two different options at that right now. We could do a minimum charge, 3 items, and that would at $30. Appliance that are non-freon and metal would be $25. Freon appliance, which is like your refrigerators, freezers, air conditioners, dehumidifiers, that would be a $60 charge just because it costs us that much to try and get rid of those as well right now. And with the option, we put that in there, it's not our preferred option, but we did do a $10 per stop brush collection for that. That would be scheduled as well. Option 2 is more of our preferred option, and that would be a $10 per item charge. When you'd go on our portal and select what you wanted on there, it would have a list, and it would tell you exactly, you just make the selection if it was a couch or end table or anything like that, and that would be $10 a piece, and then that would show you exactly what you need or what your bill would be there. Mattress and box spring would be $20. Appliances would be the same as well, and brush collection would be at no charge. Some of the services that we would increase a little bit, the compactor, we would increase those pulls to $250. Roll-offs would stay at $160. Our 6-yard rental would be $60. We'd have a commercial minimum at the transfer station for $10. And then just a bin and dumpster exchange would just be $30. Kind of threw a lot at you right there, so I'll stand for any questions that you may have right now.
Commissioners? Commissioner Olson?
More of just a clarification. Back in 2019, we did raise the sanitation rates, and at that time, we were supposed to follow a similar schedule of, scheduled increases, but for whatever reason, nobody can remember why we didn't follow through with it. So the rates, through our discussion, the rates that you're proposing now are actually cheaper than what they would be had we followed through with that plan of stepping, right?
Correct, yeah. If we had went with just, from 2019 on, and there's like a 5% increase every year, these rates right now would still be lower than if we did a 5% every year.
So a 20% jump seems like a huge jump, which it is, but if we do the same thing we did back in 2019, just raise it one time, and then we drop the ball again, we're gonna be looking at this in 5 years from now and doing another 20% jump. So to me, this way makes more sense to have it planned out and stick to the plan and go through with it as proposed. And like you said, Matt, we need to build our reserves for a potential, maybe we need to buy a new truck, or maybe we take over recycling, or maybe we need to buy an air burner out at the inert, I lost my, different things like that. We can't have such a narrow margin where that prohibits us from doing anything without having to go for a budget amendment and things like that. So I think this is a good plan that you've got laid out, and if we do approve this, we need, at a future meeting, we need to stick to it.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Anderson.
I got a couple questions. So remind me, would the transfer station remain no charge for residents?
Correct.
Okay. How frequent could residents go and dump stuff at the transfer station then? Could they go every day if they have something
Yeah,
to drop?
as long as we just have a valid ID, West Fargo ID, and it's all that would be the same. Free on appliances, some of those things we would have a charge, but just the normal bulky items, if you wanted to bring those, and some of the municipal solid waste, if you had extra, you could bring that as well.
So as part of this, I'll start with saying that you guys have done a lot of good work on this, and I like seeing the data. I think there's more that I'd potentially like to see with this if it's available. One being, there's some efficiency gained if we were to go with a front loader truck. I'd like to try and see what kind of estimate that would be in terms of savings, and whether it's down to fuel or mileage, different things like that. But I struggle with removing the follow truck, and I understand why it's an issue. It is a bit of a burden, but for some people, they don't have access to a trailer or a truck, and they don't necessarily have the funds to pay $10 or $30 for, to come pick it up, or access to the internet, or would know who to call to set up a thing. So that's one thing I really struggle with this. I understand it all, but it's one thing I struggle with. And then just looking at kind of the total for the 5 years, you're talking an increase total over the 5 years. By the end of year 5, you're looking anywhere from an increase of $132 and change to $148 per year that we're going to be paying more in trash or in sanitation services. I feel like we're nickel and diming our residents, and this is a broader conversation than just sanitation here, but going back to last year, or earlier this year with the water rates and everything, we had an increase there. We're talking potentially other utility rates increasing. We're looking at that. Has there been any thought in pulling back and looking at all of the utility fees all together, keeping in mind that they are separate funds and then you operate separately, and we're not going to transfer between them, but instead of hitting residents multiple times a year, let's do it once. What kind of work would that be? Is that something that we've thought about and looked at?
Yeah, to your point, we have, and when we've been going through this, that has definitely been on the forefront of my mind, that knowing that our water fund is doing fairly well right now, and that's the only one that is. The sewer fund needs to come back up, so we do need to see some changes in those to get where we need to be at that. And that is something that when we're going through with this, I was trying to see where we're going to be at. The increases, I know there's not going to be an increase in water in 2025 going to Fargo, or 2024 for our water fee going to Fargo in water or sewer in 2024, but more than likely there will be in 2025. So that's something where looking at that is if we can shift it around a little bit where maybe sanitation is a little bit higher in 2024 and then pulls back, and that's why we're trying to do that, where we're not trying to hit the residents. I mean, we do need to increase rates to stay with what we are providing for service, but we also need to be very cognizant of it's not an endless checkbook, right? We can't keep going back every single year. And that's why I like that 5-year plan, is that everybody knows exactly where we're at. You know, so they can budget for that. They know where we're at. But also, some of these efficiencies, like you talked about, if we can move to the front loader and different things like that, that we're not going to see the full potential or see what we actually are going to be saving until like 2026, right? Once we get into it a little bit. I know for those that were at the public meeting that we had, the rates that we had at that public meeting were higher than this rates because we went back and looked at them and took some of those efficiencies into account, right? We've had some conversations on our new waste management contract that agreed in principle, but not far enough along for you guys to be able to, in front of you guys to vote on it yet. So we've kind of added what the favorable conditions we're going to get into this as well. Some of it is the fuel, like you'd mentioned. Instead of driving so many, putting that much more trucks out there where we're actually just driving them in one route, that should save on fuel and tires as well. We made an estimate on that. There's some things that we can do to the inert that we have figured about maybe $25,000 a year that we can save just there. And some of those is what we added in, and that's what lowered this price down from what we had. But we just don't know the full extent yet until we get in there and how many people are going to use it and how these changes will affect how people use their garbage. Are they going to start recycling more instead of putting those boxes out there? Are they going to take them to the transfer station? All that helps, for the efficiencies that we have, and we'll understand more fully, in about 2 years, but this is the best we have, kind of a best guess right now. And that's something that when you guys if you do approve this, that's something we can do is look at it again in 26. And hopefully some of the things we're working on the back end to keep these things down, we can come back to you in 26 or 27 and say, hey, we are above where we wanted to be. Would you like to keep it as is? And then look at 29 to be a 0% increase or something like that. The whole goal with this is to be able to not have to do any of these double-digit increases anymore. We get to that back in 29, and hopefully we're 1-2%, something like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of help me, I guess I'm thinking I know, but help me understand. So your budget in 2023 is 5.6 million, basically, right? You have 1.6 million reserves, is that correct,
Correct.
Matt? So next year, your budget is 6.6, which is $1 million over the 2023, and yet we're only going to have 809,000, basically another 800,000 missing. Where's all that money going?
That's just, I guess budgeting in 2024 is we're budgeting in that much of a loss, actually. So that's what we're taking from reserves to cover that loss. That $1 million that you see going from 2023 to 2024 is just about entirely
Revenue versus
equipment.
budget.
Well, it's all the way down, though, Tony, all the options.
Yeah. So when we looked at our 10-year plan, we need basically about $850,000 per year for the next 10 years to actually just even replace our equipment. And that's factoring in minimal increases over the time. But that number does factor in the change to front end loaders.
Mr. George.
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. I really like with all the options that we have the 96-gallon container option, because we did the study and discovered that the majority of people, that would solve their extra trash problem, which then eliminates the follow truck option. But I do like that we have the bulky collection option still, but I also like how the people that use it aren't supplemented necessarily by the people that don't use it, because most of the people don't necessarily use it, but people like having that service. So I like that that's an option. I think the pay per item charge, I prefer the option too, with how that one is laid out, and the no charge for brush collection. That's my personal on that. As far as the other three, I mean, I guess I could be convinced with either one. It's just how much do we think is necessary to have in that reserve fund is really what it comes down to. But I like that 5-year schedule. I think that's smart too. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have one question that I'd like to ask. On your base numbers of your multiplier for the number of, say, residents numbers that we're having, we're using 2022 or 23 numbers?
We're using.
How many households was your multiplier?
I think we originally started off of 12,200.
So when you do your revenue forecast, are you only showing the increases, the dollar amounts and revenues on the rates, or do you have if you have your delta in 2022 or 2023, whatever number you're using, what increase are you projecting that your baseline of the number of households and or commercial and or residential? Did that number remain constant, or did you have an inflation or a growth factor to that?
We did have the growth factor. We basically just updated the numbers from the study and based off of our 2024 budget numbers and used their growth estimates that they have. I believe we did the residential was a 2% increase per year, and in number, and I think commercial was 1 or 2%, I believe.
So in your analytics, it's both calculations?
Correct.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
very good. The analytics that was done on this, there's only something I think that the commissioners would appreciate, and that's on your revenue side. To show them the number of residential units that we're collecting from and commercial, and so they have those numbers, and if they choose to do some of their own mathematics, then I think that would help them, that you show those numbers to the commissioners at least, and it might prompt some questions, additional questions to yourself and to Logan. I think that, and to Commissioner George's point, having 3 different options over this 5-year projections I think is a very positive thing for us to give consideration to. An initial review of this, I've already landed on which I think is the best for the residents as well as for the department. So, but it's, that's to be debated at another later time. But the fact that you put in the time and the effort this is greatly appreciated. This is something that I would hope as we move forward, as Commissioner Anderson mentioned, about the other departments that fall under Public Works, whether it's water or sewer. This is the same type of analytics that we need to know what revenues and expenses are. And again, to provide those numbers to the commissioners so they can do their own analytics, with all due respect to you as department heads and the great job that you've obviously gave us here. You've given us some choices, some things to think about. But I think it's critically important that the commissioners still have a handle on how that analytics is arrived at. That's all I'm asking for. Commissioner?
And I don't think that we can wait till we know what the potential rate increase that Fargo is going to pass along to us on the water and the sewer to hold off on making this decision.
No.
Because even with the potential increase of, let's say, the 20% for 2024 for residential, we're still going to we're going to take out $858,000 in surplus in our reserves, and if we don't implement this until 2025, we're just going backwards even more. So we can't hold off.
For the record, in my last meeting with Logan and Matt, that question, I raised that question. And that afternoon, after we got out of our meeting, I did call and reached out to the mayor of Fargo, the director of Public Works, as well as the city administrator, as to what the potential schedule would look like in the next 3 years. And they responded very promptly. There's no increase in the tip, well, they've already raised the tipping fees, but they're not anticipating any for at least, I believe it was 3 years, was it not, Matt? That they kind of basically said that they are not contemplating raising water or sewer, and tipping fees obviously went to $51 a ton this year, year 2024, but nothing is anticipated moving forward in the next several years.
Water and sewer in 25. They're looking at it in 25
Yeah.
for a rate increase, yeah.
So we've done a little bit of that research, but, you know, one never knows with what might transpire, but that contact was made with the partnership that we have with the city of Fargo. Just for the record, I wanted you to know that. Any additional questions for Mr. Andvik? Again, we're not taking action on this evening. This is an informational part of this. Anything additional? Commissioners?
Commissioner,
Not? Yes, please.
one thing I did want to kind of bring up that I forgot to mention when Commissioner Anderson brought that up, we did look at doing something, you know, where that extra $10 fee is per item. We did look at that, and if you give you another option, if you added $1 per month per customer, we would probably break even not having a bulky item fee if we wanted to do that. Then again, that just adds, you know, $1 item to everything, or $12 a month, or $12 a year per residence. Some people don't use it. Some people use it more. That is just one option that we, you know, a lot of people do like that service and don't have the funds to pay for it. That would be an option to do that. So we did, I guess, look at that as well.
As you continue to come back with information for us, include that as a footnote or an asterisk item as to a consideration that the commission might want to consider. So let's not let that fall off the table.
All right.
All right, anything else, commissioners? Thank you. Item number 4 is the North Dakota DOT Flexible Transportation Fund. Mr. Dan Hanson, City Engineer for the City of West Fargo. The purpose of this discussion he will be presenting is to approve the applications and authorize the Commission President to sign letters of support of this action. Mr. Hanson, good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner President, artists, and commissioners. We have an opportunity in front of us due to the legislature creating a new, it's called a Flexible Transportation Fund, it's solely at the discretion of the North Dakota DOT to distribute. And the purpose of it, of that fund, is to defray local costs for roadways that are federally funded and just on the federal system. And so it's a statewide competitive grant. They're going to have more applications than funding. But we took a look at the projects that we have, and we identified 2 projects that we would like to apply for this grant funding. The first project would be the 9th Street Northeast project from Main Avenue to 12th Avenue Northeast. That is already under design right now. It's a project that has moved forward. We've had it in front of you a number of times, if you recall. And that this would basically take and provide funds for the city's local share of that project. So there's, in my opinion, there's no lose in applying for these funds. Potentially we could get them, and we don't even know how much they're going to have, how much they're going to be awarding, but it might be substantial, and we'd like to obviously get some to apply towards that project. To me, that project is just like a shoehorn for this program if you take a look at what it does. The other one is the recently protested out roundabout at 23rd Avenue East and 6th Street East on the southwest corner of the Costco property. That roadway is on the system that would be affected by these funds that could be utilized for it. So we would like to also apply for that funding as well for that project. The time frame for this is we need to get everything submitted by the end of the month here, and then we should know in the spring, is what we've been told, whether we were successful in obtaining these grant dollars or not. So what we're looking for tonight would be to approve us applying for these grants, and also for the commission to authorize Commissioner President Dardis to sign some letters of support that we supplied in the samples in the packet.
Wanted to show you what it looked like.
And with that, I would entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Commissioners, any questions, comments?
Make a motion to approve if there isn't.
Second.
Commissioner Simmons moves, Commissioner Olson seconds. We have a motion to approve the North Dakota Flexible Transportation Fund applications and authorize the commission president to sign letters of support. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? For the record, they used my electronic signature. So
Those were
I
samples.
didn't sign it
so-
before I asked your approval, okay? All right, moving on. Item number 5 on the agenda is project number 6058, which is a multi-use path in Eaglewood Park to the lights on Cheyenne. Again, Mr. Hanson, city engineer, is going to be bringing that forward this evening. And the action that he's looking for is to accept the bid and award a contract. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and Commissioners. What's in front of you is the construction of a new bike/pedestrian facility that'll connect Eaglewood Park to the lights on Cheyenne. This project is, we did receive a grant through the Transportation Alternatives program through the North Dakota DOT. And we had an estimate of design estimate, actually just under $400,000, and the bids came in at $396,186.83, which was, Andrew was able to pat himself on the back a little bit because he was within $2,000, so I'll give him a public shout out for that. But it is Tyzak Concrete, who we have had in town quite a bit lately. They do good work, and we are right at our estimate. The estimated cost for the city would be $76,000 for the total estimated cost of the $440,000 total project costs. So it's a good opportunity for us to be able to connect these facilities with some bike path and get some transportation money to help pay for it. With that, I would entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Commissioners, any questions? Please, Commissioner George.
2 quick questions. The city's estimated cost share of $76,000, what fund does that come out of?
That would be out of the capital improvement sales tax would be the
Okay,
intent.
and then, do you have a map by any chance?
Not with me. I can provide one. I apologize. I don't, it was in previous ones when we were applying for it, but I can definitely provide one.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
cool, thanks.
Anything else from Mr. Hanson? Commissioners?
This would be 2024 construction.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve 6058 multi-use path at Eaglewood Park to the lights on Cheyenne to accept the bid and award the contract. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 6 is project number 9020, Main Avenue Slide Repair. Again, Mr. Dan Hanson, our city engineer for the city of West Fargo, is presenting. The purpose of this discussion is to review the bid and concur with the North Dakota DOT on their assessment and the cost of this. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and Commissioners. This project in front of you is actually a project that is a North Dakota DOT project. There is an active slide on the Cheyenne just north of Maine, and They've been basically designing it and meeting planning for it, designing it over the past couple of years. And just recently, they opened up bids for that. We do have an agreement in place with the DOT that the city of West Fargo would pay for 10% of the cost of the project. So with the bids coming out at $1,269,445.95, we would estimate, after there is some soft cost as well in there, that the city's share would be $139,639.06. That would also be intended to be paid for out of our capital improvement sales tax. This is quite considerably less than when the DOT was first considering the project. They were at an estimate of approximately upwards of $5 million. Through the course of design, discovery of what is there, coming up with the solution to it, those dollars did decrease quite considerably from what they had originally planned to what is being planned. So with that, we are not awarding the bid because it wouldn't be a contract between West Fargo and the contractor, but the DOT, to award the contract, would like us to concur with their awarding of this bid. And with that, I'd entertain questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. So the nature of this contract, how will that affect Main Avenue? East-west traffic.
There shouldn't be any closures of Main Avenue with this. Most of the work is going to be done down near the river. There is some where the slide has actually come up. It has impacted the curb. I believe that the intent would be to neck traffic down during the time frame where they would be correcting that, but I don't believe that they have any actual closures of Main Avenue planned for this project.
Thank you. My next question is this going to be a project of pilings being pounded in, or sheet piling, or something like that nature?
Yeah, it's basically a grid of pilings that would be pounded into the ground, and that's going to cause some vibrations, obviously.
The comment that I would have is that before we initiate into this, we need to be in constant contact with the public through our communications department to make those residents in the surrounding neighborhoods absolutely aware of the process that we're going to use and what they expect. And I'd also be interested in that we have some type of information with regard of hours, working hours that they're going to be doing this. You know, it's sensitivity to people with young children in the neighborhoods or whatever the case might be. So let's have all those answers before we initiate the project.
Yep. Absolutely. And
Mr. Simmons.
Thank you. Dan, I have a question because we've been through this process before. Dustin's looking at me shaking his head. Who's responsible for the homes near this project? And what I mean by that is we did a project a while back, and all of a sudden we got calls from people, their basements were cracked, and you know, it was hard for us to prove. I know, is this something that the state is responsible for, and will they go out and take pictures prior to?
Yeah, so we're working with Commissioner Anderson over the last year. He's been very, very instrumental in helping our communications with the DOT with our concerns on that nature. We have identified a couple different things, and some information is they actually drove pilings like this last year. They were actually able to set up sensors and get, because of the materials that are in the Red River Valley are fairly standard and uniform. They were able to actually take seismic readings so far away from the pilings to get detailed data on what they would expect this to be. They've drawn circles of influence where they think there's going to be the most, you know, the closer you get, the more you're going to feel it. We've expressed numerous times to them that we want this issue addressed, we want the communication done, and then also we actually worked with our GIS department to provide the DOT with the addresses of everybody within 1,000 feet, which is, they said after you get outside of that radius of influence, you might feel a little bit of a vibration, but it's not going to be anything of significance. You may not even feel it. Closer to that, the DOT is going to be offering to those members of the public to get a hold of them to do a pre-project inspection of their house if they'll ask us to do that, and they would show up to do it. And then there would be a post-project inspection as well. So that service will be offered free of charge, and then it would be up to the, likely the insurance of the contractor or the DOT to.
But at the end of the day, that will be something that the DOT is still responsible for, not the city?
Yes, this is their contract,
Okay.
their
Okay.
project.
Commissioner Anderson.
I have personal experience dealing with cracking basement because of that project many years ago on Maine. Our basement did this,
Yeah.
and that's why I was so adamant about this, because I want to make sure that people in the area are aware of what's happening, because we weren't when it was relatively close to when we moved in, but make sure that they're prepared and they have the opportunity to know what's going on and to be able to look at their basement and take pictures and talk with whoever they need to. So.
Perfect.
Anything else for Mr. Hanson? Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Hanson?
No, just that it's, from the DOT's perspective, critical that we were to be able to concur with their award tonight if at all possible.
Okay. We're concurring with the North Dakota DOT, the bid that they received. That's the action we have this evening.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Simmons moves. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to review the bid and concur with the North Dakota DOT on project number 9020, Main Avenue slide repair. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, sir. Item number 7 is the renew a contract for indigent defendants in West Fargo's court-appointed attorney. I'm going to call on Mr. Dustin Scott, City Administrator for the City of West Fargo. Good evening, Mr. Scott, and welcome.
Good evening, Commission President Ardis and members of the Commission. Before you is a contract for our court-appointed attorney services. For several years, the city has contracted with Steve Mottinger, and the current term of his contract is expiring in 2023 here, so Judge Barkus actually brought it to our attention that we need to renew his contract. We've been working with our city attorney, John Shockley. He has updated the contract to the version that you have in your packet. Both our clerk of court and, again, Judge Barkus has reviewed and commented on the contract. One change you'll note is with the associated fees. We did, at his request, Mr. Mottinger did request anywhere from $250 to $500 a month increase in his fee. We have decided to move that up by $250, so annually that will be a $63,000 cost for those services. This is a budgeted item. The budget that was approved for 2024 was a total of $61,200. And so in approving this contract, I would also like a formal amendment to that line item in the 2024 budget. So with that, I would stand for any questions. Judge Barkus is also in the audience, can also help answer questions.
Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Dustin. So I guess it's a couple $1,000s. Why do we want to amend the budget? Don't we have to, I mean, wouldn't it be easier just to take 2,000 something out of the reserves and rather amend the whole budget process?
Just for the sake of, I guess, bookends, if you will, cleaning, just house cleaning, so we can formally go into our system and amend that line item. And when we do start providing financial reports, if there is any question on that particular line item, it will show that it was amended.
Right, but when we amend we send our budget to the state, right? Or to the county?
To the county, yes.
So then don't we have to amend that entire budget and send them that?
No, what we send to the county is more of the mill levy. It's that portion the county is concerned with. In terms of amending an expenditure line item like this, that would not have to get reported
Okay,
out.
so this isn't gonna hurt anything?
The thing
No.
that can't go up is the mill levy.
Right, okay.
And to your point, Commissioner Simmons, this additional cost would likely come out of general fund reserve if it does exceed our revenue from our mill levy.
Okay.
And for the record, we received the letter and the request after the budgetary process was completed, so. Commissioners, any other
Motion to
questions?
approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve with the amended budget from $61,200 to $63,000 annual, amending the budget. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Scott. We'll move on to item number 8, being you're at the podium, City Administrator's Report.
Well, thank you again, Commissioner President Dardis and Commissioners. I'll try to be brief here. Just a few items to go through. First one being just an update on that intersection at 9th Street and 52nd Avenue West, where we talked about a roundabout at our last commission meeting. The commission did direct us to put up a 4-way stop. Public Works was Johnny on the spot with that. As of last Monday, that 4-way stop was installed. However, right now we are using some temporary flashing lights. They have ordered a permanent beacon that will be, an improvement to that 4-way stop. My understanding is that there was some initial feedback on Facebook within their neighborhood chat, but over the past few days anyway, we haven't heard anything. So we'll continue to monitor it, especially now as we go into the cold climate season here and start dealing with ice in the road. Sometimes that can create a problem for a 4-way stop, but have no doubt that Public Works will address those as soon as they becomes an issue.
They also put up a stop sign warning that it's coming last week. And today, again, they put another one that's further back on 52nd to the east as you're coming up on it. So there are some warning signs that there is a 4-way stop that they're approaching.
Yes.
I watched them do it today. They put up the second set of signage.
Very good.
Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. I would imagine, am I correct in saying that some of the Facebook comments don't like the stop signs either then? Is that what that was about?
And I don't have I'm gonna paraphrase a couple comments.
Yeah.
A couple comments were, didn't know this was happening. We did last week also send out some information through social media and hopefully made everybody aware as much as we can. There were some concerns with how far back the queuing was into the South Wilds development. Other than that, I think a lot of it was, didn't know it was coming. And that's where,
We can't please everybody.
yeah, well,
We
and,
do the best we can.
yep. And so hopefully we address that information piece. And like I said, Public Works and Engineering will continue to monitor the situation and, make it as best as it can. And if it becomes more of an issue, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Okay.
Very good. Anything additional for us?
Yes, a couple more items. One, just want to make you aware that Heidi, our finance director, and myself are working with John Shockley on a federal grant program procurement policy. This is a very similar policy as to the purchasing policy that we adopted earlier this year. However, it is very specific to projects and purchases using federal funds. So it is a lot more of a detailed policy, I would say, follows the Code of Federal Regulations pretty closely, but it is a compliance necessity for a city to have this in place. And during our audit process, Ide Bailey did point out that we still needed that to be done. So our plan is to bring that forward to the next commission meeting. And prior to doing that, we will send out a draft to commissioners just as a heads up, but that will be coming forward at the next meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
And then last, I just want to make the commission aware that, with open enrollment, these past few weeks, our Human Resources Department has been very busy. And unfortunately, we've been struggling with our HR software, NeoGov. Our HR manager, Sarah Gosevich, could sit here for a long time and go through a lot of items, but I do want to point out a couple challenges we're dealing with, payroll related. insurance interruptions because the reports are not correct. And then again, our issues with open enrollment, we still have yet to actually complete that process, albeit it was supposed to be done a week ago. So we are starting to discuss the potential of finding new software provider. We wouldn't, at this point, we wouldn't be looking for something that's going to increase costs. We already pay quite a bit of money for NeoGov. So in our efforts to look at new software, it will certainly be to stay within our budget that has already been approved. But again, want to make the commission aware that we are working through these challenges and going to start those conversations. With that, I guess I would stand for any questions.
Commissioners, questions for Mr. Scott? Looks like we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
No correspondence?
And no correspondence.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Last week, the city of West Fargo and West Fargo Events sponsored the tree lighting ceremony where all 5 of us commissioners were at that activity. Special thank you to West Fargo Events for coordinating. A very special thank you to Public Works and getting up the Christmas decorations and helping erect that 26-foot Christmas tree. I got corrected. It's not 25 feet tall. It's 26 feet tall. But we had nice weather. We had a marvelous turnout. We anticipate that we had approximately 300 plus people that were there. And a lot of those were young children, which was great to see. And Santa Claus was there this year. And I will make a note for the public that West Fargo Events, through the generous sponsorship of True North Steel, made up Christmas tree stands, 25 of them. And so we have Christmas trees lining Cheyenne Street. There's no cost for a sponsorship. We're just encouraging community partners throughout our community to feel free to decorate the tree as they see fit. And if you look down there, I would guess there's about 10 or 12 of them probably already decorated. So it's another great feature for our downtown community and for the public to enjoy the Christmas ornaments that are on the street lights, the Christmas ornaments that are in the POW MIA Plaza, and now we're also lining it in the business district of the yard. So great work by everybody that's involved. Very, very much appreciate that. Commissioners, do you have any non-agenda items you'd like to bring forward this evening? No. Department heads, do you have any non-agenda items you'd like to bring forward this evening? With that, Commissioner Simmons.
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Olson.
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thank you. Have a good evening.